What is the most mysterious paranormal thing you've witnessed? 1. My father passed away last year. One item he always said he wanted me to have was a pistol originally owned by his grandfather. For years, he kept it in the attic after his death. I searched the attic, but found it missing. A few months later, I had a dream where I was talking to him and asked where the pistol was. He told me it was in the closet of a spare bedroom. I called my mom and asked her to check. And sure enough, it was there. It's possible he told me this when he was alive, and the dream was just a memory. But I'm certain I don't recall such a conversation. 2. My mom recently told me a story that gave me chills. When my older sister was about 3, she asked my pregnant aunt to pick her up. My mom said, "She can't carry you. Sweetie, she's got a baby in her tummy." My sister replied, "That baby's dead." My mom freaked out, but my aunt and grandma reassured her everything was fine, saying my sister was just a toddler who didn't know what she was saying. Shockingly, the next day, during a routine checkup, my aunt learned the baby had died. Thinking about it still scares me. Year 3. When I was 15, my mom and I were talking in the kitchen. A key rack hung on the wall about 8 feet away. Suddenly, a key, possibly the original house key, flew off the rack, across the room, and landed near our feet. This is the only event in my life I can't explain. 4. The scariest moment of my life happened as a teenager, camping in eastern Canada with a friend. We decided to sleep in an abandoned camper we found deep in a forest near a town, surrounded by small trees that had grown around it. We'd discovered it months earlier and thought it'd be cool and brave to spend a night there. One weekend, we did. We arrived after dark, having gotten lost trying to find it. Our weak flashlight made things harder. When we finally reached the camper, we opened its rusty door and stepped inside. The sounds echoed loudly. Typical camper items like cups, empty cans, and old novels were scattered about. Exhausted, we settled in the bedroom area, where the mattress had mostly rotted away. A long hallway ran the campus length, letting us see from end to end. It was a miserable night. Rats lived inside, staring at us from a chewed-up ceiling. Wind made the camper creak and moan. We thought we heard a bear outside, pretending to be brave. We acted like we were having fun, but we were on edge. I woke from an uneasy sleep and sat up to adjust my position when I noticed a movement in my peripheral vision at the far end, through a small window. I saw a man's silhouette clearly staring at me from outside. At first, I thought it might be a tree's odd shape. But when I shifted to see better, he reacted and froze. My heart raced. I woke my friend, whispering, "Someone's here," not taking my eyes off the figure. He saw it too. We whispered frantically about who it could be and why he was staring. For 10 minutes, we stared back, growing more terrified. He'd occasionally move but kept watching us. I finally shouted, "Hey," no response. My braver friend decided to shine the flashlight on him. That's when we realized our mistake. It wasn't a window. It was a mirror. We'd been staring at our own reflection. It was the scariest, most relieving, and funniest moment of my life. The closest I've come to a supernatural experience. 5. I once saw a shadow person, though I only learned the term later. I lived in a 1920s house in Laguna Beach, historically a speakeasy, brothel, and hub for smuggling illegal immigrants. One day, my newlywed wife and I argued. I don't recall why. She went to get coffee and cool off, leaving me alone. The house's layout was chaotic. A bedroom and living room on one side, a bathroom with two entrances, and a hallway with a window on one side and two bedrooms on the other. From my bedroom, I could see through the bathroom and down the opposite hallway. While standing at the closet, I noticed movement in my peripheral vision. There was a black, scribbled shape, about 3 feet tall, vaguely human, like a child's drawing with moving, electric arc-like lines. It made no sound. I wasn't scared at first, just confused, thinking, what the heck? Then it noticed me watching. It didn't turn, it just focused on me. That's when I got terrified. I froze, unable to move or scream. As it rushed down the hallway toward me, I don't know what it intended, but as it reached the bathroom, the nearest door slammed shut. I screamed for my wife, who wasn't home, and ran outside in broad daylight. I didn't return until she came back 10 minutes later. I don't believe in ghosts or the supernatural, but I know I saw something. I don't know what it was. 6. As a 17 or 18-year-old living with my parents, I was trying to sleep in my room, tossing and turning. I opened my eyes and saw a dark figure just outside my door, which I thought was my stepfather. He was holding both hands at chest level, making spooky finger gestures, like someone mocking a scary story, or a witch casting a spell, frantically wiggling his fingers toward me. I looked over and said, "What the heck are you doing thinking it was a dumb, creepy thing to do at night?" At that moment, it vanished. My heart sank, and I was utterly terrified, unable to comprehend what I'd seen. It's one of the few times I was scared out of my mind. 7. When I was 11 or 12, I didn't believe in the supernatural, aliens, or anything like that. At about 5 a.m., I was sleeping on the bottom bunk at the end of a hallway when a figure, about my dad's height, stood in the doorway doing nothing, just standing. I could hear my grandma, who was watching us in the basement, and I vaguely recalled my dad leaving an hour earlier. I closed my eyes twice, opened them, and squinted to look like I was asleep, too scared to move. I shut my eyes, hoping it was a weird dream. I couldn't sleep, but soon after, I heard a wardrobe slam loudly in the spare bedroom. My grandma ran upstairs, telling me to stop making noise, I explained, and she opened the spare bedroom door. Nothing was there. There was no way out. The second floor window with a screen was intact. It's one of two experiences in my life I can't explain. 8. My grandfather died weeks after I was born, so I never met him or knew what he looked like. At age 5, I started seeing a man on our wooden rocking chair. I called him the rocking chair man. My parents thought it was an imaginary friend face, but it bothered them when I mentioned him daily. They finally asked me about it. I described every detail I remembered, and they showed me a photo of a man. It was my grandfather. Now, at 22, he appears in the background of my dreams, always in the shadows. I remember dreaming about my high school graduation, looking at the stands, and seeing him with my parents. I believe he's watching over me since I never got to meet him. This is why I believe in the supernatural. 9. While pursuing my bachelor's and PhD, I had a wonderful reading comprehension instructor named Jennifer. She was stunning, and all the guys had crushes on her. I admired her for reading *The Giver* aloud to us. She was an amazing teacher, also working on a PhD in literature. Years later, Jen moved to South Carolina to teach literacy. I was in a PhD Tati program, working in the same grad student office she once used, alongside her former literacy colleagues. Then we got news that her boyfriend killed her. Everyone was devastated. She was widely known and loved. Days after her funeral, her body was sent home. I was alone in the university office early one morning. The grad student fishbowl, 10 desks in a group, was inside a larger locked office with motion sensor lights. As I entered through a locked door with a window, I saw a short-haired, dark-haired woman walking in the opposite direction inside. Oddly, the lights didn't flicker as she moved. I rounded the corner to the coded door and entered. I walked to where I saw her, and the lights flickered as they sensed me. No one was there, just me and an empty office. I swear it was her, saying goodbye to a place she'd spent years in, where she had many friends. It terrified me, but also made me sad. 10. My girlfriend's mother had cancer, with only a 5% chance of survival. One night, she dreamed of her grandmother, who said, "I'll die so you can live." The next day, her mother called with serious news. My girlfriend's mom said, "Don't tell me. Grandma's gone." Her mother confirmed, "Yes." "How did you know?" "She survived and has been cancer-free for 20 years. Another story involves my girlfriend's sister. While looking at a photo album, her sister pointed to a man and said, "That's Grandpa." Her mom asked, "Yes, but how do you know you never met him? He died before she was born." She replied, "He sits at the foot of my bed some nights and I talk to him." 11. I grew up in the Arctic, where clear night skies dazzled with strange lights. Winters were long and cold, but the starry sky was mesmerizing. I'd take my parents' snowmobile out of town, turn it off, and lie on the snow to stargaze, with only the wind breaking the silence. The northern lights appeared often, beautiful but familiar, sometimes ignored if not spectacular. One night, without permission, I took the snowmobile a few kilometers out at midnight to stargaze. I found a spot free from town lights, turned off the engine, and lay down. At first, it was normal satellite streaked by. Auroras flickered faintly, and I heard a strange clicking sound. I thought it was the engine cooling in the harsh cold, but the sound was steady, coming from above, not around me. I looked up, searching for the source. The sky seemed normal stars, auroras, satellites, but within the aurora, I noticed 3 unusually bright points of light. They grew clearer, and the clicking grew louder, like mechanical pen taps echoing in my head. I stared, fascinated yet terrified. Suddenly, everything stopped. The lights vanished. The clicking ceased. I was freezing, stiff but okay, confused. I climbed onto the snowmobile. The engine struggled to start, worrying me, but it finally roared, and I sped back to town. I tried rationalizing maybe a helicopter from the mine or an odd aurora. I told myself it was nothing. At home, the lights were off, odd since it wasn't late when I left. I quietly entered, shed my winter gear, and went inside. The house was silent. My parents, usually up late reading or watching TV, were asleep, thinking I'd dodged trouble. I went to my room to set my alarm. Then I froze. The clock read nearly 6 a.m. I'd left at 11 p.m. Nearly 7 hours had passed, but it felt like moments. I didn't sleep that night. I never took the snowmobile out at night again. 12. This happened to my aunt. A woman, I believe, has never lied to me. Years ago, around Easter, my family eagerly awaited my great-grandmother, my aunt's grandmother, to join us for the holiday. She was set to arrive at our house on Friday, Thursday night, after everyone was asleep. My aunt was woken by a hand on her shoulder. She looked up, surprised, to see her grandmother smiling. She only said she was very sorry she couldn't make it for Easter. wished my aunt good night, and said she was glad to see her before leaving. My aunt thought nothing of it and went back to sleep. The next morning, we got a call that she'd passed away in her sleep the previous night. 13. In my late teens, after my father's suicide left me an inheritance, I decided to escape my chaotic life. My mom couldn't afford to keep our family's rental cabin near Mount Bachelor, Oregon, so it was set to be sold. In its final vacant month, I saw a chance for peace with my dog Midnight ski gear and my dad's car. I headed to the familiar two-story cabin with a living room, small kitchen, master bedroom with a balcony, and dark rooms I always avoided. The first 2 days were calm. I played with Midnight in the snow, snowboarded, and relaxed with PlayStation, liquor, and cigarettes. The cabin sat in a pine forest, with only 2 nearby cabins, both empty. Everything was normal until the third day. At noon, while outside with Midnight, I found fresh footprints in the snow around the cabin, leading into the dense forest and vanishing, thinking someone might be at a nearby cabin. I brushed it off. That night, Midnight perked up, ran to the living room and demanded to go out. When I took him outside, he tugged his leash, staring at the forest and the roof where the footprints had been. I pulled him inside, but 30 minutes later, heavy footsteps echoed on the roof like a man's long strides. Midnight barked. Rushing to the balcony door, mustering courage, I went out with a flashlight, but the roof was empty, the snow undisturbed. As my eyes adjusted to the dark, I saw it. On a pine tree 20 feet from the balcony, a man-like figure crouched on a branch, hands gripping the one above, motionless. My heart pounded. Midnight growled softly. I wanted to shine the light but felt a voice in my head scream not to. I backed inside, locked the door, and drew the curtains. When I shone the light on the tree, nothing was there. That night, soft tapping on the balcony glass persisted for nearly an hour. Midnight stared but wouldn't approach. I felt someone urging me to open the door, but my dad's voice in my head told me to stay put. I eventually passed out. The next morning, everything was normal. The rest of the week passed without incident. I wonder if it was my imagination, fueled by grief and stress. But that night still haunts me. 14. A few years ago, my best friend and I moved into a rented house. It was undeniably strange, giving me odd feelings. Every night as I went to bed, I heard music, not singing, just instrumental, like a distant radio playing unfamiliar tunes. I dreamed nightly of a faceless crowd with a boy standing in front. He never spoke, but I knew he was trying to tell me something. The fridge often opened on its own, and our cat hissed at corners. We smelled cigarette smoke from the back room at 3 p.m. daily. My aunts, avid ghost hunters, set up cameras one night. We caught little, but one camera spun for 15 seconds, and at 3 a.m., the front porch light turned on, glowed brightly, then dimmed. When I moved out after 2 years, I struggled to sleep without the music. It was a very strange house. 15. My company's headquarters in Germany was supposedly haunted. I thought the guys, NCOs, and even the first sergeant were teasing me before my CQ duty. Around 2 a.m., I heard strange noises upstairs, a broom being pushed down the hall, voices, and even cigarette smoke. I checked the parking lot, though anyone entering would have passed me. No cars were outside, back inside. I still heard voices and noises. I crept upstairs and clearly heard German voices. I reached the landing, but there was nothing, no people. No voices, no broom, just lingering cigarette smoke in the air. 16. My mom grew up in rural Guatemala, where magic was real, and she shared many strange stories from her and her siblings' experiences. The creepiest was about a young apprentice to a shaman who traveled the country healing people. He was murdered in western Guatemala City, and arrangements were made to return his body for burial. They paid a lowlife to transport the body in his pickup truck. The man arrived, loaded the coffin, and started back. But his truck broke down. Alone in the early morning darkness, he frantically tried to fix it to make the funeral on time. Suddenly, a well-dressed man appeared from nowhere to help. He got the truck running, and the man delivered the body on time. During preparations, he passed the open coffin to pay respects and saw that the dead man inside was the same man who'd helped him with the truck. It still gives me chills. 17. A few years after my dad's death in a motorcycle accident, strange things started happening at my dome. Clocks fell off walls and changed time. Batteries popped out of remotes, and banging and knocking were frequent. The strangest incident occurred about 6 months after his death. One day, after returning from college, I showered, wiped steam off the bathroom mirror, and noticed faint writing. I opened the 3-panel medicine cabinet mirror and found "Hey" written in my dad's handwriting, with the elven eye symbol from asterisk, the Lord of the Rings asterisk he often drew. Only my mom and I were home, and I'm certain she didn't do it. Odder still, a week earlier, I'd broken a glow stick, splattering liquid on the mirror. The "Hey" was asterisk under asterisk the splatter, untouched and unblurred. I took a photo still looking for it but couldn't explain it. We removed the mirror to preserve it, fearing damage. Years later, the mystery still haunts me. 18, in 7th grade, my family moved to a mill-town house near an old dam and textile factory. Once home to workers, the upstairs always felt unsettling. But I chalked it up to adjusting to a new place. I struggled to sleep, waking at night for no reason. Then I heard faint banging, like it came from the attic. My dad checked but found nothing. Weeks later, the banging grew louder, and I kept waking. One night, a loud asterisk bang asterisk and the sound of breaking plastic jolted me. I looked at the window. The curtains were torn. Though the window and door were locked, panicked, I ran downstairs. My parents checked but found no cause. I slept on the downstairs couch until we moved soon after. Recently, I learned that neighborhood rarely keeps residents long. Oddly, this year, in my current apartment with 3 roommates, we sometimes hear knocking at 2 a.m. My roommate says it stops when she opens the door. For me, it stops when I turn on the light. The mystery remains unsolved. 19. A few years ago in Galveston, Texas, I worked on a shrimp boat with a friend. My job was to cook dinner and assist with the winch. But I mostly read magazines to pass the time. In a Reader's Digest asterisk, I read about a Canadian actor who lived in Galveston in the early 20th century. After his death, his family wanted to bring his body back to Canada for burial, but couldn't afford it. So, he was buried in Galveston. Years later, a massive storm devastated Galveston, causing severe flooding. 4 or 5 years after, a miracle happened. The actor's coffin washed up in his Canadian hometown. The flood waters had swept it out to sea, and somehow it crossed the ocean to where he belonged. 20. 2 days ago, my grandfather shared a supernatural experience from about 2 years ago. He had a close friend of 35 years, working together for over 20, who passed away shortly before this event. One night, he woke to see his friend standing at the foot of his bed, dressed in a sharp suit. He described him in one word: dapper, like how he dressed in their youth when they partied together. He felt no fear, only calm and joy. His friend smiled. He smiled back. And then his friend vanished instantly, not fading like in movies. He thinks his mind might have tricked him. but retelling the story. He beamed, as if he'd just seen his old friend again, 21, in high school. I dated a wonderful girl, charming, sweet, with a perfect smile. Tragically, she died in an ATV accident from a head injury. I was devastated. About a week later, I got an email from her saying she was excited to hang out that summer. Oddly, it comforted me. I don't know if it was an auto-sent draft. That same week, a text came from her phone, though no one had touched it since her death. Her parents and brother didn't even enter her room. I'm still amazed, feeling like she was talking to me. 22. Last month, after a long workday, I drove home at midnight on a deserted road. Exhausted after over an hour of driving, I focused on the road. Suddenly, about 30 feet ahead, I saw a large brown object rolling along the shoulder. As I neared, I thought, a rock hitting it could wreck my car. But as I passed, I was stunned. It was a square, brown decorative pillow, rolling asterisk, perfectly asterisk like a wheel, defying physics. The next day, I saw it on the shoulder, stopped, grabbed it, and tossed it in my trunk to store near my parking spot. I didn't tell my fiancée, who brings home a dirty road pillow 2 days later. It was gone. Maybe someone threw it out, but I like to imagine it rolled off, continuing its bizarre journey. Astonishing drivers like me, 23. After my grandmother's death, my mom brought home her beloved snow globes and placed them on shelves around the living room. Weeks later, she found a video that reminded her of Grandma and wanted us to watch it. Near the end, she cried from emotion. As the movie ended, all the snow globes played music simultaneously. Though no one touched them, terrified, we huddled together. My mom, trembling cold. Mom instantly. The music stopped and the room turned freezing. Panicked. She told us to run to the car. And she drove to my godmother's house. She cried for hours until my dad called, saying he was nearly home and we should return. Back inside, the house was warm. But all the snow globes were shattered on the floor, except Grandma's favorite, which remained intact. 24. In 2007, my grandfather died after a 20-year battle with leukemia. My grandmother couldn't stay alone in their home of nearly 60 years. So she moved to a nursing home months later. For insurance reasons, my parents asked me to move in to watch the house. I agreed, right after his death. Strange things started. His portrait in the living room fell. His photo frame flipped upside down at night. I thought my grandma was imagining things, so I didn't care. While cleaning, our family dog, whom he adored, refused to go to the basement where he worked in his office and barked at the stairs. Though it rarely barked, after moving in, items kept disappearing. I bought a new lock, stored it in a cupboard, but days later, found it in the trunk of his old BMW in the garage. He loved pranks, so it felt almost familiar. Every morning, the kitchen radio turned on at 5:30, his news listening time. I heard typing from his basement office. These sounds comforted me. I started talking aloud to him, as if he were there. After 6 months, it all stopped. No noises, no missing items, no radio. Worried, I brought the dog back. This time, it didn't hesitate, running straight to his basement office without barking or pacing. That's when I knew he was truly gone, though 8 months had passed since his death. I felt profound loneliness for the first time. 25. My apartment has 2 hallways forming an L shape. My room is at the top of the L, the bathroom at the corner where the lines meet, and the living room at the outer corner. One night, I went to the bathroom as usual, not turning on lights since I knew the way. As I left and turned off the bathroom light, I I saw a teenage girl standing at the intersection of the short hallway and living room. She wore a white floral dress, smiling warmly, not menacing, panicked. I ran to my room. 20 minutes later, I turned on all the lights to check, but she was gone. The spot where she stood was freezing. Though it was an August night, I lived there another year, never seeing her again. After moving out, I told my roommate, who lived near the bathroom. He was stunned, saying, "I saw her too." We described the same girl dress, smile like finishing each other's sentences. He saw her twice. I didn't believe in ghosts before, but now I believe something's out there. I still get chills retelling this. 26. In my first year of college, my friend and I decided to visit the mall one evening. We took a bus at 8 p.m. but got off at a deserted stop at 10 p.m. No buses were coming, and we waited hopelessly. An old man passed by, telling us to walk down a dark single-lane road lined with tall trees to find another stop. We followed, reaching a station on a slope where we could see half a kilometer in both directions. My phone was dead, and my friend forgot hers. Panicked, we waited. Suddenly, I saw two 12 or 13-year-olds with backpacks approaching. Relieved, I asked the boy about the bus. He checked his phone, saying it had come in 10 minutes, though the stop sign had no information. My friend chatted with the girl, who said they were heading home from school. When I turned to thank the boy, both kids were gone in an instant. We looked up and down the road. Through the fences, nothing. Terrified, we waited until the last bus arrived at 12:17 a.m. Later, my brother revealed a cemetery was nearby. Why were two kids out in the middle of nowhere at midnight? Though I don't believe in ghosts, I can't explain it. 27. One boring night, my three friends and I decided to explore an abandoned mental hospital. The only entry was through the morgue. As other areas were sealed, our group was me, another guy, and two girls. As soon as we entered the morgue, one girl panicked, gasping and crying, insisting we leave immediately. Despite our efforts to calm her, we had to go. The girls walked ahead, one comforting the other. While my friend and I trailed behind, something made me look back. Under the moonlight, at a second-floor window, I saw a young girl in a white dress staring at us. I told my friend to look, and we both stared for 20 seconds. I thought it might be a trick of light, but then she moved panicked. We rushed past the girls, yelling for them to get to the car. Maybe someone brought a young girl there, but no cars were nearby, and the place was miles away. Perhaps a homeless family, I don't know. All I know is it was a little girl in a white dress, staring from a second-floor window of an abandoned mental hospital at 2 a.m. 28 at a dinner party years ago. I met a renowned psychic. Skeptical, I watched as she read for about 20 guests in the living room. After 20 minutes, she stopped, declaring a stronger power in the room needed acknowledgement. She asked us to look at each other and share if we felt drawn to someone. An awkward silence followed. She looked at me, saying I was a gifted empath, and urged me to speak. I admitted feeling drawn to Tammy, a stranger. She told me to reach out with my mind. Suddenly, Journey's Don't Stop Believin' played in my head with sadness and the name Mark. I felt compelled to thank Tammy. Sharing this, I choked up, unsure why. Tammy went pale. Mark, her friend, died of AIDS in the 90s. She was the only one who visited him regularly, and that song was their motivational anthem. Everyone was stunned. That night, I read others. I revealed a man's childhood abuse secret, making him cry. I told a woman her marriage stress stemmed from her focus on wanting kids, angering her as she thought I knew her secrets. 5 of 6 readings were accurate, except for my partner's. Confused, I worked with a psychic that summer. She believed I was an empath, sensing emotions and retrieving stories from intuition. I don't profit from it, only doing it drunk at parties since it reveals private secrets. The best method is holding a stranger's personal item like a ring or pillow for 10 minutes. Holding their hand, letting my mind wander, and speaking. In 90% of cases, they cry, laugh, or stare in disbelief. I don't understand this ability. It challenges my skepticism. But I can't deny what happened. 29. In our old apartment. My wife swore there was a ghost in the kitchen. She felt its presence, but I never saw anything. In 4 years there, I had one strange experience. One day, playing Xbox in the living room, my controller died, though I'd just changed the batteries. The spare controller died too. The receiver's remote, TV remote, and Fio's remote all died. I grabbed my laptop, freshly charged, but it wouldn't turn on. My phone, with battery left, went dead too. I couldn't text my wife about the weirdness. She blamed the kitchen ghost. I'm skeptical, but haven't heard a better explanation for every battery-powered device dying at once. Someone suggested an EMP, but wouldn't that destroy all electronics? Not just drain batteries, I'm still puzzled. 30. I don't believe in the supernatural, but 3 years ago, something inexplicable happened to my wife and me. Since childhood, I've struggled to wake up due to deep sleep. One Christmas, my grandma gave me a radio alarm clock, advising me to set it to static at max volume for urgent wake-ups. The piercing noise always worked. She passed away years later, 3 years ago, on a tough Friday night. My wife and I were fast asleep. Suddenly, the radio alarm blared at midnight. Though set to off, it woke my wife, but not me. She couldn't stop it. After 10 minutes, I turned it off, and we slept. 15 minutes later, it blared again, thinking I hit snooze. I unplugged it and slept, then it screamed again, static at max volume, though unplugged. With no lights or clock display, my wife fled the room in panic. I stared, heart pounding. It stopped abruptly. In the silence, I heard our phone muffled from the living room, finding it wedged between the couch and a pillow. I saw a call from my mom. She'd fallen alone at home, breaking her hip, and was helplessly trying to call for help with her phone in her bathrobe. If the alarm hadn't woken us, we'd have been away for the weekend, unaware. This is the strangest thing I've ever experienced.